Man, so now we know what it all looks like, man. The smoke is cleared, fight is over. Now we get a chance to sit back and analyze this fight in a few days. But before we all get to start analyzing everything, I just want to drop my take on the aftermath of the fight, man. Really good fight, man. I enjoyed it. There was a few rounds where I was just kind of like, but I knew that Keith Thurman was in there doing what he had to do to retain whatever lead he had, and they believed they were up. They believed they were winning. So, you already know that he was going to go in there and be on his toes and moving around. Just like I told you guys in the pre-fight video, man, that if he boxed on the outside, he was going to be victorious. And I'm happy that the dude had his hand raised. Like I told you guys in the last video, I did pick Danny Garcia to win. But I picked him to win due to the fact that he always finds a way to win. And secondly, if he pressed the fight, if he pressed the action, if he set traps for Keith Thurman, he would have been victorious. He wasn't that far behind. Well, I ain't going to say he wasn't that far behind because Keith Thurman really did dominate him in this fight as far as outboxing him. So, he looked ordinary in the ring, just like I told you guys what Keith Thurman and them wanted to do. They wanted to make sure that he looked pretty mundane if they took away the left hook, even though Danny did land it a few times on Keith, but it never did. You got to understand what the judges are looking for. In previous fights, Danny Garcia has been able to land that left hook, and he's been able to either shake his opponents up and back them up off of them, or he's been able to lay these guys down with the left hook. So now he gets into a fight, a major fight, where the titles are on line and pound-for-pound status matter, and he's not able to do any of that stuff like he's been able to do in previous fights. So a judge is going to see that, and he's automatically going to say, you know what, Danny doesn't look the same way that he's looked in previous fights. So something is wrong here. So what's wrong is Keith Thurman is making him look ordinary. Keith Thurman is moving. He's in there being very unorthodox. He is throwing Danny's timing off. He is causing Danny to follow him around the ring, not cut off the ring, but follow him around the ring. He is forcing Danny Garcia to be left open. He's frustrating him. He did all the things that was talked about in that video that I already put out. So you got to analyze that from a judge's perspective. Who would you give the fight to? I don't even know where they got the split decision from, but I told you guys in that video that, it was possibly going to end up being they was going to try to do a split decision if they want them to get back in the ring. So this is to force people to start talking and force the fans to start arguing with each other and going back and forth and saying, oh, well, Keith Thurman was running, he did this, he did that, and try to force a rematch and get them back in the ring at some point. But it just wasn't a good enough showing for Danny Garcia. It just wasn't. He was flat-footed like we all know that he is. He was flat-footed. He couldn't get to the body like he needed to slow Keith Thurman down from moving around the ring. Obviously, this is what the Thurman camp worked on. They already knew that Danny was flat-footed and he wasn't going to be able to catch up with him. So there were times where Keith was throwing the looping shots like I told you guys in the video, but I just didn't really see where Danny and his camp worked on that to try to capitalize on the mistakes that he was making. He made a few mistakes. He was lunging in. He had his head down low when he was lunging in with his jab to the body. He was lunging in when he was throwing hooks. He had moments where he could have capitalized, but because of that first round where he got rocked and he felt Keith Thurman's power, he didn't want to press the action. He didn't want to get in there and take any unnecessary punishment. He felt the possibility of himself going down. He felt that he was going to get knocked down, and that's not something that he wanted to do. So, he didn't press the action like he was supposed to. So those are all of the things that you have to be able to take into consideration when you're watching boxing, especially at its highest peak. And this is at its highest peak in the welterweight division right now. Between those two, we've been waiting on this for about 2, maybe 3 years now. We've been hearing about Danny Garcia and who he's fought, and his resume looks like this and his resume looks like that. But it didn't matter. He got in the ring with Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman, he out-timed him, he outboxed him. His strategy was better, his footwork was better, his defense was better, his head movement was better, his power shots was better. I mean, everything that the guy got in there and worked on, he looked sharper than he has in his last 3 fights, I would say. He looked very, very sharp in there. He didn't look amateurish. He looked determined, he looked ready, and he looked like the victor in there. And I can't believe that they really went with that split decision, man. It should have been a majority decision. It definitely was not unanimous because people wasn't really feeling the fact that they both were kind of sitting there, not really doing anything, not really going at each other the way that they should have, especially in those swing rounds. So, man, I'm just happy. I'm happy that I got a chance to witness it after waiting all this time. I wish I was a little more excited, but it was just everything I expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be any different outside of Danny Garcia losing, but, come on. Come on. If you got a guy that's flat-footed, you got a guy that relies on his punching power, you got a guy that throws his jab half the time after throwing his hooks, after throwing body shots and things of that nature, it's not going to translate into anything victorious for him. I thought that maybe he would string together combinations and do a little more damage to Keith Thurman by stringing together his combination, but he couldn't get in there. He just couldn't because his footwork wasn't good enough. And this is why I always preach footwork in every video. In every video, if I don't see it. Now, if you got 2 guys in there, like what they're going to do with, Andre Berto and Sean Porter. You got 2 guys in there that don't move around. They both come forward. It's nothing else you can expect from those 2 but bombs and clashes, headbutts, and things of that nature. So you're going to see a little bit more action in a fight like that where guys don't have to be that technically sound, because they both are going to be standing toe-to-toe. They don't move around as much. So especially in those middle rounds, those rounds that will turn into swing rounds, the 6th round, 7th round, 8th round, those rounds right there, that's when you start seeing the sloppiness come out. That's when you start seeing all of that where guys are just trying to get rest. Guys are trying to get a breather in and things of that nature. So you start seeing where guys are taking unnecessary punishment if the other guy is digging in. But anyway, man, I like to keep these at 8. I'm already over. I said what I had to say. Congratulations to Keith Thurman and his camp. Danny Garcia stepped up finally and took that challenge, so I got to give him a little credit. Other than that, I hope you guys saw it the way that I saw it. I hope you guys enjoyed the fight. Hit me up, man. Drop some comments down in the comment section. Let's see what happens in the aftermath of the post-fight, because this is a post-fight video, so we just waiting on the aftermath. All right, man. Peace.